Heyo and welcome back to Wonderlands gamers. In today's video, I'm continuing a series that I started in Borderlands 3 where I farm every boss 100 different times, taking down their dedicated drops and their drop rates for you guys. Also things like Enchantments, Chaotix, and Volatiles because those are huge at endgame. And honestly, great timing for today's episode because we're farming the Banshee and one of her drops just got a 50% buff last night and it's now one of the best weapons in the game. Now, if you guys would like to farm the Banshee, it's actually incredibly easy to get to. Just go to the Weepwild Dankness and there is a fast travel station very conveniently placed at the fight itself. So just go to the Corrupted Heart fast travel station, there'll be some vending machines, and then just to the right, there'll be a drop off into the fight itself. A few things to clarify from my previous video. First off, all my 100 farm videos are done with 48,000 loot luck as a base comparison, which is practically the max loot luck that you can get in the game. There's the breakdown of how I got to that insane number. If you want more of a breakdown, I made a whole separate video for you guys. I'll leave it in the description or I'll link it at the end of the video so you can check out that if you want. But just know you want the max amount of loot luck because that way you can get way more legendaries from both dedicated and world drop sources. Secondly, as most of you know, this number is completely bugged out of its mind. Every single time you log into the game, it'll be broken, showing a varying amount, usually way lower than what you're supposed to have, and it doesn't fix itself until you travel to a different location. Then it'll show you your actual loot luck number. In previous videos, I said do not let this number break while you're farming different bosses, because if it breaks and it's way lower, you won't get as many legendaries. Because in my experience, you do get way less legendaries. I tried on 3 different occasions, 3 different bosses, by just logging in and out of the game and letting the number break every time, versus just traveling to Brighthoof, turning around, hitting that portal, going back to the exact same news station and farming the boss that way. Both the same amount of time in load screens. I got way less legendaries by letting the number break and logging in and out of the game versus just going to Brighthoof on 3 different occasions. So that's why I gave you guys that information. Since then, I've got a bunch of comments from you guys and also other content creators have shown live on stream that the number is only visually broken, and logging in and out, they got the same amount of legendaries and sometimes slightly more legendaries than I got by just logging in and out. So take that information as you will. I don't know if it's broken or not. I'm going to assume it's visually broken, but I'm personally just going to keep going Brighthoof because, well, every time I don't, I get less legendaries. Speaking of legendaries, we got a ton of them today. After 100 farms of the Banshee at level 40 Chaos 20 with 48,000 loot luck, we got 95 legendary items, which is actually wild. In comparison, Zomboss, we only got 51, so almost double the legendaries there. Lechance, we got 67, and our most recent video was a blatantly broken farm. Caster makes 0 sense, drops way too many of the same items, and there's just more than one thing wrong with that guy. But he gave me 107 legendaries, so not even that many more. This boss, the Banshee, isn't broken. They're just a great farm. As for the dedicated drops, the Banshee only has 2 of them, which is fantastic because any more than that, it just takes way too long trying to get the thing you actually want. The first one being the Banshee Sword, which honestly I think is one of the coolest looking melee weapons in the game. It also comes with the ability / gimmick / passive that melee attacks create up to 3 projectiles that seek out enemies behind the target that you hit, dealing 50% weapon damage. It also comes in all elemental types to my knowledge. I've seen all of them except Cryo, and I would assume they wouldn't do all of the other elements and then just leave out Cryo, but let me know in the comments just to confirm that you guys have seen the Cryo one. Also comes in non-elemental and has a very solid base damage number of 1500, which is putting it up in the very top tier of the melee weapons for its base damage. The second one is the automagic.exe. Now, both of these weapons can come with different prefixes and suffixes, which slightly change the parts, which means different damage numbers, fire rates, mag size, stuff like that. But this one is what I'm most excited about because last night it got a 50% buff, extremely conveniently timed. I was going to post this video last night. I got on well, I didn't finish it, and then I woke up this morning to this thing having a 50% buff. When all of the other pistols got nerfed into oblivion, this thing is now one of the best weapons in the game, definitely for pistols and definitely for mobbing situations in particular. It's pretty solid for bossing as well, but mobbing I think is where it definitely shines. The accuracy is the only downfall to this weapon. It now has a really good damage amount. Fire rate's really good because of the Stoker / flat off. Mag size and reload time are very average for a pistol as well. It's just a 23% accuracy, so you want to be up nice and close in mobbing situations. And then also it has a secondary firing mode, which is a tracker dart. So bigger enemies or anything, if you get close up and personal, hit them with the tracker dart, then you can just blatantly stop aiming. And you're going to be doing so much damage because it already does a good amount when you're missing a bunch of the shots because of the horrible accuracy. When you start hitting 100% of the shots because you're aiming at the sky and the bullets are curving and hitting all of them into the enemy, just deletes any mob. It's fantastic for Chaos Chamber, Chaos 20, Intense Mode, all of the elite runs. It does great. Particularly, I was running with Spore Warden today, the ricochets as well. So if you're seeing the gameplay and like, wow, ricochets, that is Spore Warden's ability. but would recommend trying out Spore Warden. It's sick on them. Also, almost forgot to mention, it does come in all elemental types, excluding non-elemental, so you can get any of them and be super efficient regardless of what type of enemy you're fighting. Oh, and one other thing to clarify, I got a few other comments in previous videos saying X weapon doesn't dedicate drop here, like I said it would. Because it also drops from this boss or in the Chaos Chamber. Just because something has a dedicated drop doesn't mean it doesn't also drop in the world drop system. In fact, most weapons that have a dedicated drop, I'd say like 90% of them, also drop in the world drop system, including both this pistol and the melee weapon. So you will see the auto magic and the Banshee in the Chaos Chamber bunnies if you want to get it from there, or any boss you farm. It's just if you want to target farm this, it will be likely faster just to farm Banshee herself if you want to. But yeah, just to clear up, there's usually only like a handful of weapons that only drop in their dedicated drop spot. Usually they also drop in the world drop system. Now, as for the drop rates themselves, like I said, we got 95 legendaries out of the 100 farms, 74 of which were world drops. And out of the world drops, we got 20 class mods, which is a heap, 15 spells, 11 melee weapons, 10 wards or shields, 8 guns, 8 necklaces, and 2 rings. And that seems to be on par with all of our other tests so far. We always seem to get a bunch of world drop spells. This one, kind of like Keister, drops a bunch of class mods, which is fantastic because they're really hard to farm. So if you want a good class mod farm, Banshee's also a great option. And for some reason, always necklaces and rings are at the bottom of the list, which explains why I never have any good necklaces or rings for my build, because they just never drop. Don't know if that's a bug or what the deal is. At least we got a decent amount relatively of necklaces this time, but again, just always at the bottom of the list for some reason. As for the dedicateds, out of the 95 legendaries, 21 of them were dedicated drops, and this time actually very evenly split, which you love to see. 11 of them were automagic.exes, and 10 of them were the Banshee Sword. So very nicely even. Usually how the game works, it decides we're dropping a dedicated drop and it'll randomly roll between the dedicated loot pool that the boss has. And out of the 2 dedicateds, you expect it to be relatively 50-50 over a bunch of farms. Maybe you get a few more at the start, but eventually it will even out to be about 50-50. This time, yes, happily it does do that, but usually, for example, the Zomboss farm, I get way more last gasp shields every single time versus the undead one, and the Lechance fight, I get way more peg legs versus the other 2 weapons that he has in his loot pool every single time. So potentially some bosses are a little bit wonk with how they roll their dedicated drops, but at least this time I can, you know, safely say that if you guys are trying to get automagic.exes now that they're being buffed, or if you're going for a Banshee Sword, they not only drop a decent amount of dedicated drops, they drop them evenly, so it should be a pretty nice farm to try and get what you're after. And they only have 2 dedicated drops, where sometimes they have 3 or even up to 4 dedicateds in their loot pool. And the final stat we've been testing is the Chaotic and Volatile gear drop chance. And if you guys didn't know, there's supposed to be a set amount depending on what Chaos level you're at. At Chaos 20, it's supposed to be a 28% drop chance for Chaotix and a 1.4% chance for Volatiles. Usually pretty bang on for Volatiles. We usually only ever get 1 Volatile per 100 farms, including today. The Chaotix, though, seem to be kind of all over the place. This time, not too bad. We actually got 28 Chaotix out of the 100 farms and the 95 legendaries. The distribution of those for world drops to dedicateds always seems to be a little off, though, unfortunately. We only got 7 dedicateds to be chaotic, and 21 of those were world drops. So again, if you're trying to do the math of how long it's going to take you to farm out the exact weapon you want with the exact roll, with the exact elemental type, with it being in volatile, with it being enchanted, it can take a little while to farm these weapons out. Almost forgot the enchantments. We got 25 enchanted items out of the 95 legendaries, which seems to be the most stable stat out of all the things we've been testing. It seems to stay on par as we're getting more and more legendaries. But that is a loot from 100 farms of the Banshee. If you guys are enjoying the series, feel free to subscribe down below. It is much appreciated. I'll link the video right here if you guys want to check out how to get 48,000 loot luck. Other than that, we also have a Twitch and a Discord community if you guys are interested. I'll link them in the description down below. And other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Catch you guys next video and our live stream. Until then, adios.